The great crystal towers of Nexus Prime stretched high into the purple sky. Inside the tallest tower, 12 different alien species sat around a massive round table. This was the Galactic Council, the most important meeting in known space. Today something was wrong. Ambassador Kethvar shifted his green scales as he stood up. His reptilian eyes looked worried. The Saurix people were known as fierce warriors, but even they seemed scared now. "Council members," he said in his deep voice, "we have a serious problem." The other aliens turned to listen. There was Zix from the insect-like mantoids, her forearms clicking nervously. Elder Zafara floated above her chair, her ghostly blue form shimmering like water. The bird-like avalons ruffled their colorful feathers. Everyone was paying attention. "Our patrol ships in the outer rim have been disappearing," Kethvar continued. "Not destroyed, not captured. They just vanish. We find pieces of metal floating in space, but nothing else. No bodies, no escape pods. Just empty space and strange energy readings we cannot understand." Captain Thex of the Mantoid Defense Corps stood up on his 6 legs. His compound eyes reflected the crystal lights. "It's not just the Saurix," he said. "We've lost 3 scout ships in the past month. Same thing. They send a normal report, then silence. When we arrive, we find only debris." The council chamber filled with worried whispers. The crystalline beings made sounds like wind chimes. The gas-based Vortons swirled faster in their containment suits. Even the proud Avalons looked concerned. Elder Zafara raised one translucent hand. She was the oldest being in the galaxy. Her people had kept records for thousands of years. "Please, council members," she said in a voice like singing crystals. "Let us not panic over old spacer tales." "Tales?" Kethavar's scales turned darker. "Ships are missing." "Yes, and I know why," Zafara replied. She waved her hand and images appeared in the air above the table. Ancient symbols and old writing filled the space. These disappearances matched stories from long ago. Very long ago. The council members leaned forward to look at the floating images. The writing was in old languages that most species had forgotten. "What are these?" asked Commander Veltar of the Aquatic Union, his gills fluttering. "Legends," Zafara said. "Stories about something called the Terran Phantoms. According to these old tales, they came from a forbidden place called Sol. The stories say they were like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will." She pointed to more images. They showed strange creatures that looked almost like some of the council members, but different. They walked on 2 legs like the Avalons, but had no feathers. They had 2 arms like the Mantoids, but no extra limbs. They looked simple, basic even. "The legends say these Terran Phantoms were incredibly dangerous," Zafara continued. "They could survive anywhere. They used primitive weapons that somehow worked better than advanced technology. They could fight even when badly hurt. They could breathe different atmospheres and live in extreme temperatures." Captain Thex clicked his mandibles, the Mantoid way of laughing. "You seriously think these old fairy tales explain our missing ships?" "The timing matches," Zafara insisted. "Every few hundred years, ships would disappear near the outer rim. Then the disappearances would stop for centuries. The pattern is exactly the same." Ambassador Kethvar slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Even if these legends were true, which they are not, how would these phantoms destroy modern military vessels?" "The stories say they were very smart about war," Zafara replied. "They would study their enemies for long periods before attacking. They would learn weaknesses and then strike perfectly. But these are just old stories told by drunk spacers in cantinas." The floating images changed to show star maps. A small section was marked in red, far from any civilized space. "This is where the legends say they came from," Zafara explained. "The Sol system. Our long-range scanners show nothing there. Empty space. No planets, no stations, nothing." "Because it's empty," said Veltar. "Whatever was there died out long ago, if it ever existed." Captain Thex was studying the data on his personal scanner. His compound eyes focused on the readings. "Wait," he said slowly. "Council members, I need to share classified information." The chamber fell silent. Classified military information was rarely shared in council sessions. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected massive hyperspace signatures, Thex continued. "Very massive. Moving through space in perfect formation. The energy readings don't match any known technology." "What kind of signatures?" asked Kethvar. "Unknown propulsion systems. Unknown power sources. Unknown everything. But they're organized. Military organized." Whatever they are, they move like a fleet. Elder Zephara's ghostly form flickered. Moving from where? Thex manipulated his scanner, and a three-dimensional map appeared above the table. Red dots showed the detected signatures. They were all moving in the same direction, coming from the same area of space. From the Sol region, he said quietly. The council chamber erupted in noise. Some species laughed. Others argued. The crystalline beings chimed in discord. But several council members looked worried now. "This is ridiculous," declared Ambassador Lorth of the Silicon Collective. His rock-like body glowed with irritation. "We are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. We have energy weapons that can crack planets. We have shields that can stop supernovas. We have ships faster than thought itself. Some primitive species from the outer rim cannot threaten us, if they even exist," added Veltar. "These could be natural phenomena. Space is full of things we don't understand yet." But Kethvar was reading the data more carefully. His warrior instincts were telling him something was wrong. "Captain Thex, how many ships are we talking about?" Thex's mandibles clicked nervously. Based on the energy signatures on hundreds, maybe thousands. The chamber fell silent again. Even the most advanced species rarely assembled fleets of more than a few dozen ships. Hundreds of vessels would be the largest military force anyone had seen in centuries. "Where are they now?" asked Commander Veltar. Thex checked his scanner again. The signatures disappeared 2 days ago. They dropped out of hyperspace somewhere in the Middle Rim territories. "Near our colonies," whispered Ambassador Lorth. Elder Zephara studied the ancient records floating around her. According to the legends, the Terran phantoms were patient. They would watch and learn for very long periods. Then when they were ready, they would reveal themselves. "You really believe old stories about ghost warriors?" Kethvar asked. "I believe in patterns," Zephara replied, "and this pattern has repeated throughout history. Ships disappear, strange readings are detected. Then something emerges from the Sol region. Usually nothing comes of it. The disappearances stop and life returns to normal. But sometimes what? Sometimes the old records speak of first contact. Direct communication from the phantoms. And when that happened, everything changed. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. They were leaders of the most powerful civilizations in known space. They had conquered diseases, mastered faster-than-light travel, and built wonders that amazed the universe. But now they were worried about old stories and missing patrol ships. "I propose we increase security patrols in the Outer Rim," said Kethvar. "If something is out there, we need to know what it is." "Agreed," said Captain Thex. "I can have a full battle group in the area within 10 days. And I suggest we prepare emergency protocols," added Veltar, "just in case these phantom stories have some truth to them." Elder Zephara nodded slowly. "Be very careful, council members. The legends say the Terran phantoms are not evil, but they are dangerous. They protect themselves and they protect their territory. And according to the old stories, they consider this entire galaxy to be their territory." The meeting ended with more questions than answers. As the council members returned to their ships, none of them knew that their conversations were being watched. In the darkness of space, sensors recorded every word. The Watchers had been patient for centuries, but their patience was finally coming to an end. The mining station on Kepler 442c had been silent for 3 days. It should have been impossible. The colony housed 12,000 workers from 6 different species. The automated systems sent reports every hour. The defensive grid was controlled by the most advanced artificial intelligence in that sector of space. Nothing could make such a place go completely quiet. Commander Rixtal of the Saurix Emergency Response Fleet stared at the empty space where the mining platform should have been broadcasting signals. Her scales shifted from green to dark amber, showing her confusion and growing anger. Behind her, the bridge crew of the rescue ship worked frantically at their stations. "Sensors show the station is still there," reported Lieutenant Kess, his 4 insect eyes focused on the scanning equipment. "All buildings intact. Life support systems functioning normally. But no life signs, no communications, no movement." "That's impossible," Rixtal muttered. 12,000 beings don't just disappear." The rescue fleet approached carefully. The mining station sat on the surface of a small moon, its metal structures gleaming under the light of 3 suns. Everything looked normal from the outside. The landing bays were sealed properly. The defensive turrets were in their correct positions. Even the mining equipment was parked exactly where it should be. "Landing team ready, Commander," announced Sergeant Vorth, leader of the station's security forces. "Take them down," Rixtal ordered. "Full combat gear. I want answers." The landing shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere of the moon. As it approached the main complex, the team could see that the exterior showed no signs of battle. No burn marks from weapons, no damaged walls, no scattered debris. It was like everyone had simply walked away. Inside the station, the landing team found something even more disturbing. The colony was completely empty, but everything was organized perfectly. Meals sat half-finished on tables, but the food was neatly arranged. Workstations were abandoned, but all equipment was carefully turned off and secured. Personal belongings were gone, but storage areas were not damaged or ransacked. "Commander," Vorth's voice crackled through the communication system. "You need to see this." The security team had found the main storage facility. It was enormous, designed to hold processed minerals worth billions of credits. The warehouse was completely empty. "They took everything," Vorth reported. "Every piece of valuable material, every advanced tool, every weapon from our security armory, but they left all the basic supplies. Food, clothing, medical equipment. They only took technology." Rixtal felt her scales turn darker. "What about the security recordings?" "That's the strange part," replied Vorth. "The recordings are still there, but they've been deliberately damaged. We can see shapes moving, but the image quality is terrible, like someone wanted us to know they were here, but didn't want us to see them clearly." The investigation team spent 2 days examining the station. What they found made no sense according to everything they knew about space piracy or military attacks. The unknown visitors had been incredibly organized and efficient. They had studied the station's systems in detail before acting. They knew exactly what to take and what to leave behind. Most importantly, they had done all of this without harming a single person. 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UHSS Indomitable, studying the same mining station through long-range sensors. The human fleet flagship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where alien ships were built for beauty and efficiency, human vessels were built for war and survival. The Indomitable looked like a massive piece of industrial equipment that had been covered in armor and weapons. "The extraction was perfect," reported Colonel James Rivera, head of Human Intelligence Operations. "Our team studied that mining facility for 6 months before moving. We knew every security protocol, every defensive system, every work schedule. The local population was relocated safely to 3 different systems with full compensation for their property." "And they have no idea who we are?" Admiral Chen asked. "They know someone was there," Rivera replied. "The security footage shows our teams working, but the image quality is too poor to identify us as human. As far as they know, we could be any unknown species." Admiral Chen nodded. She was a small woman compared to most alien species, but her presence filled the bridge. Her gray hair was tied back in a simple military style. Her uniform was plain and practical. She looked like exactly what she was, a professional soldier who had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. "Status of the observation network?" she asked. Lieutenant Commander Park looked up from her station. "All surveillance posts are operational, Admiral. We have eyes and ears on 12 major worlds, 43 military installations, and every major trade route in this sector. The aliens still don't know we exist." "Good," Chen said. "What about Earth Command?" "Final authorization came through yesterday," Rivera reported. "Operation Revelation is approved. We are cleared to begin open contact with galactic civilization." Admiral Chen walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Humanity had been watching this galaxy for over 200 years. When humans first achieved faster-than-light travel, they had expected to find a universe full of dangerous enemies. Instead, they found something much more interesting, a galaxy full of intelligent species who had never learned to fight real wars. The alien civilizations were incredibly advanced in many ways. Their technology could do things that amazed human scientists. They could manipulate energy like artists working with paint. They could build structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They could travel between stars as easily as humans drove cars between cities. But they were soft. Most alien species had evolved on worlds with light gravity and stable climates. They had never faced the kind of challenges that made Earth such a dangerous place to live. They had never developed the adaptability that came from surviving ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, and constant environmental change. More importantly, they had never learned to wage total war. Their conflicts were limited affairs, more like elaborate games than life-or-death struggles. Their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy. Their military strategies focused on avoiding casualties rather than achieving victory at any cost. "Admiral," called out Commander Torres from the communications station. "We're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command." Chen walked over to review the message. It was short and direct, exactly the kind of communication she expected from Admiral Harrison, head of the Human Space Force. "Observation phase is complete. Intelligence gathering phase is complete. The aliens are beginning to ask questions about the missing ships and strange energy readings. Time to move to contact phase. Good luck, Sarah." Admiral Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. These men and women had trained for decades for this moment. They had studied alien languages, alien cultures, alien psychology, and alien military capabilities. They knew more about galactic civilization than most aliens knew about their own neighbors. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she announced over the fleet communication system. "Operation Revelation begins now. We are going home." The human fleet had been hiding in empty space for months, their ships powered down and drifting like debris. Now they came alive. Engines that had been cold began to warm up. Weapons systems that had been offline began their activation sequences. Sensors that had been passive began active scanning. On 47 ships throughout the fleet, 20,000 human crew members prepared for humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization. They had waited 2 centuries for this moment. They had studied, planned, and prepared for every possible scenario. Most importantly, they had learned that the galaxy was not ready for humanity as much as humanity was ready for the galaxy. The aliens had grown comfortable in their peaceful civilizations. They had forgotten that the universe was a dangerous place where only the strong and adaptable could survive. "Navigator," Admiral Chen called out. "Set course for the Sorix patrol route. Maximum speed. Course laid in, Admiral. Engineering, I want all systems at full power. Weapons, shields, communications. Everything. All systems green, Admiral. Communications. Prepare a message for broadcast on all alien frequencies. Ready, Admiral." Admiral Chen took a deep breath. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not a legend or a myth. They would learn that the Terran phantoms were real, and they had been watching and waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. "Take us home," she said. The human fleet began moving toward civilized space, toward a meeting that would change everything. Behind them, they left empty space and silence. Ahead of them lay the most important first contact in galactic history. The legends were about to become reality. Commander Sethak of the Sorix Defense Fleet was having what he thought would be a routine patrol day. His 12 ships moved through the empty space near the border territories, scanning for pirates or smugglers. The reptilian commander sat in his command chair, reviewing reports and thinking about his upcoming promotion ceremony. Everything changed when his sensor officer suddenly straightened up, all 4 of his arms working frantically at his control panel. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Urix, his voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting an unknown vessel. It just appeared on sensors." "Appeared?" Sethak's scales shifted to a darker green. "Ships don't just appear. What was your scanning pattern?" "Full spectrum, sir. I was monitoring everything within 50,000 kilometers. This ship wasn't there 30 seconds ago." Sethak stood up and walked to the sensor station. The screen showed a single contact, roughly the size of a heavy cruiser. But the design was completely unfamiliar. Where Sorix ships were long and sleek like their creators, this vessel looked blocky and industrial. It was covered in what appeared to be heavy armor plating, and strange projections that might have been weapons. "Could it be a new design from one of the other species?" Sethak asked. "No, sir," replied Urix. "I've never seen anything like it. The hull composition is reading as some kind of metal alloy, but it's incredibly dense, much heavier than any normal ship construction." Sethak felt his warrior instincts beginning to wake up. In 2 decades of military service, he had never encountered anything that made him nervous. But this unknown ship felt different, dangerous. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. Standard first contact protocols. The communication officer, a young Sorix named Kelth, activated the broadcast system. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Sethak of the Sorix Defense Fleet. Please identify yourself and state your business in this sector." For several minutes, There was no response. The strange ship continued moving on the same course at the same speed, seemingly ignoring the entire Saurix fleet. Then the answer came, and it changed everything. "This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the United Human Federation Starship Defiance. You are in violation of territorial boundaries established by the Treaty of Sol. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The voice spoke perfect galactic standard, but there was something about the accent that none of the Saurix had heard before. More importantly, the message made no sense. "Treaty of Sol?" Sethak muttered. "There is no Treaty of Sol in any galactic database." Lieutenant Erix was already checking his records. "Sir, there's no United Human Federation in our files either. No species called humans. No record of any territorial claims in this area." Sethak opened the communication channel again. "Captain Rodriguez, we have no record of your species or your territorial claims. This sector has been open space for over 300 years. If you have legitimate claims to this territory, please provide documentation." The response was immediate and chilling. "You want proof? Look around you." Sethak was about to ask what that meant when Lieutenant Erix suddenly gasped. His claws clicked rapidly on his sensor controls as he stared at the readings. "Commander," Erix said in a shaking voice, "we have a problem. A very big problem." The main display screen activated, showing the tactical situation around the Saurix fleet. Where moments before there had been empty space, now there were dozens of contacts. Human ships, all of them appearing as if they had materialized from nothing. "How many?" Sethak asked, his scales now completely dark with alarm. 43 vessels, Erix reported, all surrounding our position in perfect formation. "Sir, they must have some kind of cloaking technology we've never seen before." Sethak looked at the tactical display. His 12 ships were arranged in a standard patrol formation, spread out over several thousand kilometers. The human vessels had appeared in a perfect sphere around them, each one positioned to have clear firing solutions on multiple Saurix ships. "What are their capabilities?" he asked his tactical officer. Senior Lieutenant Mork studied his screens, but the readings were confusing. "Sir, their ships are reading as much heavier than ours, but also much slower. Their power signatures are strange, like they're using some kind of primitive fusion reactors instead of antimatter cores, but they have a lot of them. Weapons? That's the odd part, sir. I'm not detecting standard energy weapon arrays. Instead, they seem to have some kind of projectile launchers. Lots of them." Sethak had studied military history extensively. Projectile weapons had been abandoned by most species centuries ago, when energy weapons became practical. They were considered primitive and ineffective against modern shields and armor. But something about these human ships made him nervous despite their apparently backward technology. "Captain Rodriguez," he broadcast again, "your fleet is outnumbered 12 to 43, but we don't want conflict. If you withdraw now, we can discuss your territorial claims through diplomatic channels." The human captain's laugh was cold and unfriendly. "Commander, you seem to be confused about the tactical situation. Your ships are military vessels designed for fighting other military vessels. Our ships are designed for surviving everything the universe can throw at them, and then killing whatever threatened us." Before Sethak could respond, Lieutenant Erix called out another warning. "Sir, they're scanning us." "But it's not like any scanning technology I've seen. They're penetrating our shields like they're not even there." "That's impossible," Sethak said. "Our shields can stop anything short of a supernova." "They're not trying to stop the scans, sir," Erix replied. "They're going right through. It's like our shields don't exist as far as their sensors are concerned." Sethak was beginning to understand that he was facing something completely outside his experience. The humans weren't just using different technology. They were using technology designed for completely different purposes. Their ships weren't built to fight in the kind of civilized wars that galactic species were used to. They were built to fight and survive no matter what. "Commander," called out his communications officer, "the humans are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They're sending detailed scans of our fleet composition, our weapons capabilities, and our tactical positions to other human vessels throughout the sector." "How many other human vessels?" "Unknown, sir. But based on the communication traffic, there are a lot of them." Sethak made a command decision. This was beyond his authority and beyond his understanding. "Send an emergency signal to Saurix Command. Priority Alpha. We need reinforcements, and we need them now." Lieutenant Erix worked at his panel for a moment, then looked up with confusion. "Sir, our hyperspace communications are not working. Something is jamming them." What about our hyperdrive engines? More frantic checking.
Also offline, sir.
We're trapped here. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system again, and this time he sounded almost friendly. Commander Sethak, you're probably wondering why your faster-than-light systems aren't working. It's simple. We've been studying your technology for over 200 years. We know exactly how to disable it without damaging your ships or hurting your crew. 200 years, Sethak whispered. We've been watching you, Commander. Watching and learning and preparing. Your species fights wars like games, with rules and limitations and concern for casualties. We fight wars like our survival depends on it, because it usually does. Sethak looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all excellent soldiers, trained and experienced. But they had never faced anything like this. Their entire military philosophy was based on the assumption that all intelligent species fought wars the same way. What do you want? Sethak asked. We want you to deliver a message to your Galactic Council, Rodriguez replied. Tell them that the legends they dismissed as fairy tales are about to become very real. Tell them that humanity is coming home to the galaxy that we've been watching over for centuries. Watching over? Commander, do you really think it's a coincidence that your species have enjoyed centuries of relative peace? Do you think pirates and raiders just decided to be less active? Do you think hostile alien species just naturally became more diplomatic? The implication hit Sethak like a physical blow. You've been interfering with galactic affairs. We've been protecting them, Rodriguez corrected. Quietly, secretly, making sure that the galaxy remained stable while we decided whether your civilizations were worth preserving. The decision has been made, and that depends on how intelligently your leaders react to our existence. We're not conquerors, Commander. We're gardeners. We've been tending this galaxy for a very long time, and we've grown quite attached to it. Sethak felt his scales return to a normal green color as some of the immediate tension eased. You're saying you're not hostile. We're saying we're not unnecessarily hostile, Rodriguez replied. But Commander, please understand something very clearly. Your species developed on a world with light gravity and a stable climate. You've never faced the kind of challenges that turn a species into survivors. We come from a world that has been trying to kill us since the moment we learned to walk upright. Everything about us, from our biology to our technology to our way of thinking, has been shaped by that experience. What does that mean for us? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives from all 12 major species had arrived within hours of receiving Commander Sethak's report. The crystal towers of Nexus Prime buzzed with activity as ships from across the galaxy brought military leaders, scientists, and diplomats to deal with the crisis. Ambassador Kethvar stood before the assembled council, his scales a deep amber color that showed his stress. Council members, the situation is worse than we initially believed. The humans have not made contact with just one patrol fleet. They have revealed themselves simultaneously in 17 different systems across known space. Elder Zephyra floated above her position, her ghostly form flickering with agitation. The ancient records are becoming clear now. Every reference to the Terran phantoms mentions this same pattern. They observe silently for centuries, then reveal themselves everywhere at once. Captain Thex clicked his mandibles nervously. Our intelligence reports are consistent across all contact points. The human ships appear primitive by our standards, but their crews seem to know everything about our technology, our military capabilities, and our political structures. How is that possible? Demanded Ambassador Lorth, his crystalline body glowing with frustrated energy. Because they've been watching us, replied Commander Veltar. The evidence is overwhelming. They have detailed knowledge of our patrol routes, our defensive positions, our supply chains. This isn't intelligence gathered in weeks or months. This is information collected over decades or centuries. The council chamber filled with worried conversations in a dozen different languages. The implications were staggering. If the humans had been observing galactic civilization for centuries without being detected, then everything the major species thought they knew about their security was wrong. What do they want? Asked Senator Quicks of the gaseous collectives, her voice echoing through her environmental suit. Kethvar consulted his notes. According to Commander Sethak's report, they claim territorial rights to numerous systems throughout the galaxy. They say these claims are based on something called the Treaty of Sol, which predates most of our civilization's space travel capabilities. That's impossible, declared Ambassador Lorth. We have complete historical records. There was no advanced civilization in the Sol system when we began exploring that region. Elder Zafara's form grew brighter. Unless they were hiding. The ancient legends speak of the Terran phantoms as masters of concealment. They could make themselves invisible when they wanted to remain unseen. Captain Thex was reviewing tactical data on his personal display. Council members, we have a more immediate problem. Based on the encounters across all 17 systems, we estimate the human fleet size at over 3,000 vessels. The chamber fell silent. Even the largest galactic military had never assembled more than a few hundred ships for major operations. 3,000 vessels represented a military force larger than anything seen in galactic history. What are their capabilities? Asked Commander Veltar. That's what worries me most, Thex replied. Their technology appears primitive, but it's incredibly effective. They use metal hulls instead of energy matrices, which makes them much heavier but also much more resistant to our weapons. They use projectile weapons instead of energy beams, which seems backward until you realize that projectiles can't be deflected by standard shields. Surely our numbers advantage would compensate, suggested Ambassador Lorth Thex's compound eyes focused on the crystal being. What numbers advantage? The humans have more ships than the rest of us combined, and their vessels are designed differently than ours. Our ships are built for speed and efficiency. Theirs are built like fortresses that can move. Elder Zafara was reviewing data from the ancient archives. The legends speak of Terran phantom weapons that could weaponize entropy itself. I never understood what that meant until now. What do you mean? Kethvar asked. Their weapons don't just damage their targets, she explained. They disrupt the fundamental systems that allow advanced technology to function. Energy shields, anti-gravity generators, hyperspace drives. The humans have learned to attack the infrastructure that our civilization depends on. Commander Veltar was studying reports from the contact zones. There's something else. In every encounter, human ships demonstrated the ability to adapt their tactics in real time. When our forces tried long-range combat, the humans switched to close-range tactics. When our ships attempted to maintain distance, the humans used pursuit weapons that followed targets for light minutes. They're learning, Kethvar realized. Even during combat, they're analyzing our responses and adjusting their strategies. Because they've had centuries to study us, Zafara said. Every military exercise we've ever conducted, every weapons test, every tactical manual. They've been watching and learning while we had no idea they existed. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. They were facing an opponent that knew everything about them while they knew almost nothing in return. Propose immediate military action, declared Ambassador Lorth. We assemble the largest fleet in galactic history and overwhelm them before they can establish stronger positions. Captain Thex was already shaking his head. Ambassador, you don't understand the tactical situation. The humans aren't trying to conquer territory. They're demonstrating capability. Every single encounter has ended with human forces allowing our ships to withdraw safely. What's your point? My point is that if they wanted to start a war, they could have destroyed every patrol fleet they encountered. Instead, they sent messages. They're trying to communicate. Elder Zafara's archives were displaying new information. The ancient records speak of this pattern as well. The Terran phantoms would demonstrate their power, then offer negotiation. But the legends also warned that this offer was made only once. Meaning that if galactic civilization responds with hostility, the humans will treat us as an enemy threat to be eliminated rather than potential allies to be protected. Ambassador Kethvar's scales shifted to deep red, the Sarik's color of battle preparation. Protected? They speak as if they've been protecting us, haven't they? Veltar asked quietly. When was the last time we faced a major pirate threat? When was the last time an unknown hostile species invaded our territory? When was the last time we had to deal with any external threat to galactic stability? The council members realized that Commander Veltar was right. For centuries, galactic civilization had enjoyed unprecedented peace and security. They had assumed it was because their own military forces were effective deterrents. But what if something else had been keeping the threats away? You're suggesting the humans have been actively protecting us without our knowledge, Kethvar said. I'm suggesting that the evidence supports that conclusion, Veltar replied. And if that's true, then they're not invaders. They're neighbors who have been quietly maintaining the security we took for granted. Captain Thex was reviewing more tactical data. Council members, I need to share additional classified information. Over the past 6 months, our deep space monitoring stations have detected evidence of combat in uninhabited systems. Unknown vessels engaging and destroying what appeared to be hostile forces. We assumed it was pirates fighting each other, but now, prompted Zafara. Now I believe we were watching human forces eliminating threats before they could reach our territories. The implications were staggering. If the humans had been secretly protecting galactic civilization for centuries, then their sudden revelation wasn't an invasion. It was a graduation ceremony. What do we do? Asked Ambassador Lorth. Elder Zafara consulted her ancient records one final time. According to the legends, the Terran Phantoms had a simple philosophy. They would offer friendship once to any species they encountered. If that offer was accepted, they would become the most loyal allies imaginable. If the offer was rejected, they would become an implacable enemy. And how do we accept their offer of friendship? By treating them as equals instead of threats, Zafara replied. By acknowledging their territorial claims instead of challenging them. By recognizing that they have been protecting this galaxy and thanking them for their service rather than fearing their power. Ambassador, Kethavar looked around the council. Chamber at representatives of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Are we prepared to do that? Are we prepared to acknowledge that there is a species more advanced than any of us? One that has been watching over us like gardeners tending their crops? The vote was closer than anyone expected, but the decision was made. The Galactic Council would treat humanity's revelation as an opportunity for alliance rather than a threat to be eliminated. They had no idea that their choice had just determined the future of galactic civilization for the next 1,000 years. The Galactic Council's decision to pursue alliance was not unanimous. While the official vote favored diplomacy, several species refused to accept that humanity represented anything more than an advanced but manageable threat. Within days of the council session, a shadow coalition began forming among the more militaristic civilizations. Admiral Korax of the Mantoid War Fleet was the first to break from the council's decision. His forearms worked rapidly at his command station as he reviewed tactical reports from across the galaxy. "We are being manipulated by fear," he declared to the assembled commanders of 8 different species. "The humans have impressive technology, but they are still outnumbered 800 to 1. Commander Thale of the Crystalline Defense Force flickered with aggressive energy. "The Council has forgotten that we are the masters of this galaxy. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have shields that can stop supernovas. No species, regardless of their tricks, can stand against the combined might of our civilizations." The Shadow Coalition grew rapidly. The Saurics contributed 200 ships led by General Vextar, Commander Sethak Superior, who disagreed with his subordinates' recommendation for caution. The Mantoids brought 300 vessels, their most advanced war machines. The crystalline beings assembled 100 ships powered by captured stellar energy. 5 other species contributed smaller but significant forces. Within 72 hours of the official council decision, a coalition fleet of 800 ships had assembled in the Helix Nebula, chosen for its strategic position and its sensor-blocking gas clouds. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Admiral Korak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, studying the tactical display that showed the massive fleet spread across several light minutes of space. "Gentlemen, we are about to remind the galaxy that strength is what matters, not diplomacy or ancient legends." 3,000 light-years away, Admiral Sarah Chen watched the coalition's preparations through humanity's extensive surveillance network. The human fleet had been monitoring the Shadow Coalition's communications since the moment it began forming. Every tactical plan, every ship movement, every weapon specification was known to human intelligence within minutes of its creation. "They're really going to do it," Colonel Rivera said, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. 800 ships. They're betting everything on a single massive engagement. Admiral Chen nodded. She felt no anger toward the coalition forces, only sadness. They still don't understand what they're facing. To them, this is about military superiority. To us, this is about survival. We've spent 2 centuries preparing for exactly this scenario. The human fleet assigned to respond to the coalition threat was smaller than anyone expected, only 200 ships led by Admiral Chen herself. To outside observers, it looked like humanity was either overconfident or desperately short on vessels. The truth was more complex. The human ships were not just weapons platforms. They were survivors. Every vessel in the human fleet had been designed and built with one overriding principle. They had to be able to fight and win even when everything went wrong. The Battle of the Helix Nebula began at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time. The Coalition fleet moved into the nebula in perfect formation, their sensors straining to penetrate the dense gas clouds that blocked long-range detection. They expected to find human ships hiding in the nebula, using the gas clouds for concealment. Instead, they found something much worse. Admiral Corax was the first to realize that the humans weren't hiding in the nebula. They were using it as a weapon. The gas clouds that blocked Coalition sensors were transparent to human detection systems. While the Coalition ships groped blindly through the cosmic fog, human vessels tracked their every movement with perfect clarity. "Contact," shouted Lieutenant Vix, his compound eyes focused on his sensors. "Human ships are launching missiles from outside the nebula." "Impossible," Corax replied. "No missile can travel that distance through the gas clouds." He was wrong. Human missiles were not like the elegant energy projectiles favored by galactic civilization. They were crude, brutal, and incredibly persistent. They used chemical propulsion that was unaffected by the nebula's electromagnetic interference. They carried guidance systems that could track targets through any environment. Most importantly, they could pursue their targets for light minutes if necessary. The first wave of human missiles reached the Coalition fleet 12 minutes after launch. The results were devastating, not because the warheads were particularly powerful, but because they were designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses of advanced alien technology. Coalition shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against physical projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Coalition armor, optimized for protection against heat and radiation, crumpled when struck by kinetic impactors. Coalition power systems, elegant networks of antimatter containment and energy distribution, failed catastrophically when their delicate balance was disrupted. "Damage report," Corax demanded as his flagship shuddered under multiple impacts. "Sir, we've lost 63 ships in the first wave," reported Commander Thale, his crystalline form dim with shock. "The humans aren't trying to destroy us. They're trying to disable us." Corax studied his tactical display. The damaged Coalition ships were not exploding or vaporizing as they would under normal energy weapon attack. Instead, they were going dark, their systems failing in cascading shutdowns that left their crews alive but helpless. "They're studying us," he realized. "Even during combat, they're learning how our technology works." The second wave of human attacks was completely different from the first. Instead of missiles, human ships emerged from the gas clouds at close range, their weapons firing continuously. But these weren't the elegant energy beams that galactic civilizations preferred. They were streams of metal projectiles, thousands of them per second, creating walls of death that no shield could deflect. Coalition ships tried to maintain distance, but human vessels closed relentlessly. Where alien ships were built for speed and maneuverability, human ships were built like battering rams. They absorbed damage that would cripple any other vessel and continued fighting. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Rix, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" "They're offering surrender terms. Any Coalition ship that powers down its weapons and shields will be escorted safely out of the combat zone." Admiral Corax felt his warrior pride flare. "Tell them that mantoids do not surrender." But as the battle continued, more and more Coalition commanders began to understand what they were really facing. The humans were not fighting to conquer or destroy. They were fighting to teach a lesson. Every tactical move was designed to demonstrate human superiority, while minimizing casualties. When Coalition ships tried to use their speed advantage, human weapons tracked them effortlessly through the gas clouds. When Coalition forces attempted to coordinate attacks, human electronic warfare systems disrupted their communications. When Coalition commanders tried to retreat, they discovered that human ships had anticipated every withdrawal route. Commander Sethak, whose earlier encounter with Captain Rodriguez had begun this crisis, watched the battle from the bridge of his ship. His vessel had been assigned to the Coalition fleet despite his objections. Now he saw his fears being realized. "They're not just winning," he said to his tactical officer. "They're winning effortlessly. Every move we make, they've already planned for. Every weapon we fire, they've already developed countermeasures for. This isn't a battle. This is a demonstration. The turning point came when Admiral Korax ordered his remaining forces to concentrate their fire on a single human ship. The combined energy output of 50 coalition vessels focused on the human cruiser Tenacious. It should have been enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The Tenacious absorbed the attack, its armor glowing white-hot but holding. Then it did something that changed every coalition commander's understanding of human capabilities. It began incorporating captured alien technology into its own systems in real time. Impossible, whispered Commander Thale. They're adapting our weapons technology during combat. The Tenacious began firing coalition-style energy beams along with its own kinetic weapons. But the human-modified versions were more efficient, more accurate, and more devastating than the originals. Within minutes, other human ships were demonstrating the same adaptive capability. Admiral Korax realized that humanity didn't just have superior technology. They had superior adaptability. They could learn, modify, and improve any technology they encountered faster than their opponents could develop new countermeasures. All ships, he broadcast on the coalition command frequency. Ceasefire. Stand down all weapons, sir, questioned his tactical officer. We are not fighting an enemy, Korax said quietly. We are fighting an evolution. These humans represent what we could become if we had faced the kind of challenges that forge survivors instead of just builders. The battle ended not with humanity's victory, but with their mercy. Admiral Chen broadcast a message on all coalition frequencies. You fought with honor,